My 5-year-old dropped some Easter candy on the floor.
Yeah.
And I said, Max, you got to pick that up. And he looked at me and he said, Daddy, that's a you problem. I fell out of my fucking chair. And he was totally right.
Quiet, please.
And I had to pick it up.
Because you're the one who cares that the floor is clean.
Care.
Of course.
He does not care at all that it's on the floor.
In 4, 3,
did not miss a beat.
2.
The Awful Company presents a truly terrible podcast. Welcome to Nonsense Episode 15. I'm Jeff Parker.
And I'm CJ Little.
This is our take on the week's business, tech, and entertainment headlines. This time, we'll give an update on advances in artificial intelligence, something we've barely covered on this program. We'll discuss the rapidly deteriorating relations between the U.S. and China, and we'll take a look at that letter from the Future of Life Institute saying we all need to pause the development of AI.
AI, big surprise, folks.
Plenty of AI this week. Happy National Dolphin Day.
I had no idea.
It's also Pecan Day.
I always eat my dolphin with pecan. What was that restaurant? Was it Typhoon over at Santa Monica Airport? They got busted for serving whale.
I don't know about this.
Yeah, they got busted for serving whale.
It's also a Day of Silence, which is a campaign that seeks to shed light on what many LGBTQ youth experience daily. We also found out from a study this week that gay youths are more than twice as likely to have sleep trouble.
Let them live their fucking life.
How's your week going?
I was going fine until you told me that gay youths can't sleep.
Well,
do you ever have any happy news? Can you just one day show up with rainbows and unicorns?
Well, this is happy news because we're flushing this out in the open. Yeah. The fact that they were doing this in literally in silence,
I guess that's true.
For years is not good. This is a step forward.
So you know what I did?
What'd you do?
I went to Disneyland.
I'm sorry.
It was actually a lot of fun. They converted the Tower of Terror ride at California Adventure to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's great.
What's
it's
different
really
about
good. I mean, it's the same, like you're in free fall, you're in zero G,
sure.
But it's really fun. Like the graphics are fun, the whole storyline's fun.
But it's the exact same thing. You're just falling, right?
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, when you say it that way, Jesus.
That's sorry.
Like the anti-Walt. Like, so I just go on this coaster around a fucking mountain. All right. Thanks, Walt.
I finally saw the movie Tetris on Apple Plus. I know I haven't promoted Apple Plus yet on this episode, so let me get to that.
It's been a minute.
Tetris is, have you seen it?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Is it amazing?
The story is incredible.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
I had another thing happen this week, actually yesterday. A friend of mine listened to our podcast who I've known all my life and I care deeply about and told me our podcast was Joe Rogan for smart people.
Well, that's a low bar.
I don't know if I should be insulted or complimented. I think he meant it as a compliment, but
I think he meant it as both.
I would be okay with like your pivot for smart people, or
sure.
your Nalay Patel for smart people.
Anything
Start
else.
With some.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I've been a little testy ever since I've heard that.
But you don't know. You don't know
Joe Rogan
how he or
for
she meant
smart
it.
people.
Yeah.
What the heck?
It could be worse.
No,
I don't know how, but it could be worse. Yeah, that's it. That's absolutely it.
All right, let's get to our headlines. AI generated Dope Francis fools the internet.
This is the funniest thing I've seen.
Are you familiar with this story?
Yes, I am. It's so good. They had a couple of like nicknames for him too, right? It wasn't just, it was like Dope Francis, Pope Smoke.
Sure.
I think, what was the other one? Like Pontifex Maximus.
Yes.
So good.
This is where they made AI pictures of the Pope in different poses.
Like in a white puffer jacket.
Basically flexing.
There's one of him like at turntables, like he's holding a mic.
That's awesome.
It's the funniest thing. The thing is, they are, at least to my eye, good enough that it's not a jump for my brain to think they're real, and I'm very happy.
Well, obviously a lot of the internet did think they were real.
There was a comment on Twitter. I was reading some of this on Twitter. The guy's like, if these were real, I would join the church, which I thought was great. He looked like the Pope Michelin Man. Big white puffer jacket.
Microsoft sold software to sanctioned Russian companies, says the U.S. government.
I don't think they're supposed to do that.
They're paying big fines for selling software to sanctioned entities in Cuba, Iran, Syria, and Russia from 2012 to 2019.
It was all just like the bad Office software, just to slow them down?
Well, yeah, I think they were doing us a favor. We should actually be paying
them.
Credit,
like a tax credit. Keep selling them garbage. Do you remember Stuxnet?
No.
This was to slow down the Iran nuclear program.
I'm pretending I don't know, but I do remember the story. Yes.
Oh, well, you could just say yes.
It doesn't. It's not a good story for the listeners who don't know it, unless one of us pretends not to know it.
So this is where.
Yes, I do know Stuxnet. Go ahead, CJ.
We're taking auditions for new co-hosts. Anyone? We'd like to just go ahead and send that in. It'd be lovely.
It's Joe Rogan for smart people.
Oh my God, it's Joe. Would you like to be on Joe Rogan for smart people?
Nobody's going to want to be on that show. I don't even want to be on that show.
Set the bar so low. A fucking jellyfish is all we're going to get. That's the first application.
Secret Trove offers rare look into Russian cyber war ambitions.
Not very secret anymore.
Well, sure. They were using Microsoft products.
They were using Microsoft.
Those ambitions were really curtailed.
They set the password on the Word document, the password. Well, why is it not safe? I don't understand. This was an interesting article. So this was like a whole bunch of stuff that was outed by a contractor. I think it was like some Russian contractor, which we normally don't see leaks from them, but apparently it was vetted by a couple news sources and seems pretty legit.
It's legit, sure.
Yeah.
Shocking that they wanted to interfere with elections.
I know, weird, right? If only we had known.
things.
If only somebody had said something.
They also would like to control rail systems, which, by the way, I'm kind of all for. If we have so many crashes,
derailing,
somebody ought to control the rail systems.
So when you control the rail system, your basic options are forward, backward, and stop.
Perhaps the Russians can do it better than we can because we're having a lot of trouble. Here's a story about dieting. The brain amplifies the signal of hunger synapses. You know what this is?
Yeah, you know what I call it?
Diet, and the signal gets louder in your brain. You must eat, you must eat.
Sure.
They call that the yo-yo effect.
I also call it the Golden Corral effect. Yeah, it's a trademark name, but I call it something different.
While we're on the topic of all this food, generating power with blood sugar. Did you hear about this?
This is amazing.
A fuel cell under the skin converts blood sugar from the body into electrical energy. It sounds like science fiction, but it works perfectly.
So like when I'm cruising out in my Tesla and it runs out of juice, I just go find some fat people and plug these things in, charge my Tesla.
Pass around donuts.
Just bring some, I'll leave some
You got all the
emergency.
fuel you need, sure.
Forget like a spare tire in the back. You just have emergency donuts, just vacuum sealed donuts.
It's really like diabetics who need insulin pumps, and they've been powered in the past with little batteries and things.
Sure.
Now they can literally power it from their blood sugar.
Well, yeah, this is great. So now instead of me taking batteries from the folks that have their insulin pumps to charge my Tesla, I'll just get it from the chubby people with all the blood sugar. Hey, you look like you're on the bubble for type 1 diabetes. Come charge my car. What kind of asshole move is that?
Is artificial intelligence better at assessing heart health?
Yeah, of course.
Turns out it is. It's not even a close race.
Look at a ton of data. Look at 8 billion happy, healthy hearts, and I'm pretty sure I can pick out the one that's not.
You want to say it again without having a heart attack in the middle of it?
Sorry, my electric energy pump just went sideways.
Mark their calendar. Total solar eclipse to sweep over the U.S. in 1 year.
I'm very excited about this. This is a total solar eclipse.
Some major U.S. cities will bask in the moon's shadow for upwards of 4 minutes.
I plan on doing this with my kids.
Are you going to travel?
Yep.
Where are you going to go?
Probably somewhere around Texas.
So you want to see the full version.
I want to be,
3 minutes and 50 seconds of this
I want to be
thing.
as close to the middle totality as possible.
Apple has reportedly started a small number of corporate layoffs. You know, every other tech company has been having layoffs, and everyone's been saying, oh, Apple hasn't had to.
Yep.
They're doing so well. They haven't had, well, now they're having to have layoffs.
You know where they're starting?
Where?
Classic Music app. Kicking those
That didn't
fucking
work
guys
out that well?
Yeah. Good job getting your subscriber count up to 4. 3 of you work here. I don't. What are the other groups from Apple you think they might lay off?
For my taste, hopefully it's the people who make the Lightning port. By the way, their version of USB is going to suck. You're going to plug
USB-C?
in
No,
you're
fine.
going to plug in USB-C, and it's going to tell you, oh, you didn't buy this from Apple. It's not going to work.
Oh, well, yeah, there's going to be that.
They're totally going to make the whole point of this from the European Union was to make it so that you can use a universal charger, right?
They literally have a charger line on their P&L. Just
Right.
like chargers.
I'm sure they're going to make it so that it doesn't work.
Sir, my iPad has a USB-C port. It works just fine with any cable.
Any cable that comes from Apple.
I mean, where else would you get a $200 cable?
Exactly. In white.
In white. That if you look at it wrong, phrase instantly.
It's the old Model T.
Totally.
You can get it in any color you want so long as that color is
Yeah.
white.
Good thing that doesn't get dirty.
Florida delivery driver gets life for fatally beating woman, setting her on fire.
This is terrible.
Oh my gosh. I have never been as nice to delivery people as I am now.
Well, just be nice to all people.
Of course. But now especially any service people, whatever tip you wanted to give that guy, triple it.
Triple it. Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And wear flame retardant clothing.
Nomex. I always wear Nomex in Florida on a July day. Of course.
That's hardly annoying.
What do you wear?
Well, because of the alligators, I have to wear it too.
Yeah, well, no, you wear the chainmail.
Chainmail.
Let me tell you, the alligators go right through the Nomex. They give 0 fucks about the Nomex.
Google will shut down Dropcam and Nest Secure in 2024. In my life, I have vowed to never become dependent on anything from Google because as soon as I become dependent on it, they're going to take it away.
How's that Android photo working out for you? Moving on.
I'm not dependent on it.
No, of course
There's nobody on planet Earth less dependent on their phone than I am.
You haven't checked TikTok 6 times during this recording. Of course not. Where I get all my news from.
I actually don't have TikTok on my phone.
Why not?
Because I have it on another device that's isolated.
Oh, interesting.
And by the way, I'm the one who always argues that TikTok's not really the problem.
Meanwhile, you've got it in a fucking Faraday cage.
But I keep it on an isolated phone.
I only go into my basement in the Faraday cage on a secure connection that goes through the fucking Tor network.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's fine. Everybody should have it. Yeah.
So I can watch my air fryer videos in peace.
Totally. My dancing air fryer videos. No. There's no double standard here. It's fine.
That's part of the reason I don't have a Samsung phone because I don't want Facebook.
Fire?
I don't want any of the Meta stuff on mine. And you can't delete Facebook from your Samsung phone.
Yeah, you also can't keep the fire from coming out of the battery. So
That's another
kind
issue.
of
it's a trade-off.
I mean, it is a trade-off. Maybe you're camping one day when it catches on fire and you need a fire.
You need
source.
a fire,
Yeah.
and there it is for you.
It's not all negative.
It's
There's
plus
some
and minus.
positives there.
It's plus and
Yeah,
minus.
yeah.
Tesla employees shared video captured from customers' car cameras.
This is the segment we refer to as "Fuck Musk."
This is not a surprise, is
This
it?
doesn't sound like a privacy concern at all.
Tesla's full of cameras, and Tesla employees were sharing sensitive video and images, including a guy who was walking up to his car naked and people who got road rage, and they were sharing it in amongst themselves at the office for great hijinks and
Okay,
laughs.
first of all, I was drunk. Okay, I couldn't find my pants. I
No,
thought they were
sure.
in the car.
You thought they were in the car.
But this is what happens. You put a bunch of cameras on stuff. Same thing with security cameras on things all the time. I mean, like, how many cameras are on a Tesla? There's like 8 all around it. 'Cause
Something
they
like
have
that,
the Sentry. They should put one of those cameras. And Elon, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, you should point one of the cameras.
Yeah,
at
he's
this-
known for his listening.
Oh yeah, he is. We get a lot of comments from Elon. This is his favorite segment.
I don't mean necessarily just from us. I mean, just in general, he's known for his listening.
He's definitely known for his listening. But they should take one of those cameras and point it at the fucking steering wheel, and they can see if the guy puts the bolt in so the steering wheel doesn't fall out. Is that what it takes? You get a little AI. Look at
That's
the
a good
camera.
idea.
You can have that royalty free.
Okay, up next, CJ is going to talk about something brand new for us: artificial intelligence.
I wanted to provide a quickish update on what folks are already seeing in GPT-4 versus 3.5, and a view on what has.
But this is the problem, by the way, with AI. If you cover AI, you're covering it
you're
every
so
day
deep. You
because
pretty
there's
much-
so much stuff happening
It is
so fast.
insane how fast this is going. And I want to talk a little bit about the Llama leak, which I think is pretty interesting.
Let's do it.
GPT-4, have you played with it much yet?
Not a lot, no.
You should.
Yeah.
It's really good. I was kind of hunting around, reading comments online about how people have been testing GPT-4, especially relative to 3.5, right? So you can see the sort of increment.
Big difference.
And I came across some interesting stuff. So this one in particular, somebody asked the question to both 3.5 and 4, the question of a glass door has push written on it in mirror writing.
Okay.
Should you push or pull it? GPT 3.5 said if the word push is written in mirror writing on a glass door, you should push the door to open it.
Yeah.
So wrong. GPT-4 said since the word push is written in mirror writing, it suggests that the instruction is intended for people on the other side of the door.
Sure.
Therefore, you should pull the door to open it.
Yeah. A
Which
7-year-old, by the way, could have figued this out.
Well, yeah, but maybe
I
my
know it's,
7-year-old. Like, I've had a problem before. I've read it put backwards and pushed on it. I'm not afraid to admit it. That old Gary Larson, the School for the Gifted, the door says pull and the kid's pushing on it. So funny. I also thought it was funny. Some dude took the same question and asked it to Bard, to Google's Bard.
Sure.
And while it got it right, it also added, here are some other things to keep in mind when opening a glass door. Use your hands to open the door. Do not use your feet or other body parts. Be careful not to break the glass. Glass doors can be very fragile, so it's important to be gentle when opening them. And then this is my favorite. If you are unsure how to open a glass door, ask for help from someone who knows.
It's very useful, Bard.
Jesus, Bard, what are you doing? Like, are you going to slap this disclaimer on
All
everything?
about safety.
The future is a dark place.
We do not want to be responsible for anything that happens to you playing with glass doors.
I feel like somebody who's working on Bard set the mansplaining switch to 11. Why is it telling me that?
I wonder if it does that anytime you talk about anything glass.
That could be. That right?
You get all these
absolutely
warnings.
Could be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe later I'll ask about my glass real doll and see what it says.
Glass what?
Real doll?
What's a real doll?
What's a real doll?
That's what I asked you.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you live in a cave?
Was I doing it in mirror text? Where did I lose you?
Let's try this joke again. Maybe I'll ask it about my glass fleshlight. Does that help any?
No.
Listener.
What's a real doll?
What's a real doll? You ever seen these? It's like a doll that you buy that looks very human-like, very human features. You can order however you want, tall, thin.
Oh, it's like a sex robot.
It's a sex doll.
Oh, okay.
It's not a robot. It just lays there. I mean,
it doesn't talk?
I've heard. Let's be clear. Hypothetically, I don't know. I mean, I read once. Fuck. By the way, they've been back ordered lately. I don't understand.
Have they?
Yeah, they really
good.
have been waiting for my order for a long time. So that was the glass real doll joke.
I'm a little older than you. My interest is give me the real remote. I'll watch the real TV while you do your doll thing.
Grown up. This is literally the version 3 of The Odd Couple. Right there is what that is. You're just looking.
You know, the nice thing is you laugh at me, funny boy. You'll see. Age is coming your way, my
You're
friend.
just watching reruns of Carson.
Yes, my TV only gets TV shows from the 70s.
How amazing would that be? I never turn my TV on. I would just have like Carson on all day. So that was the glass door question that was asked to GPT. Somebody upped it and asked GPT-4 by adding sort of one more level to the logic problem. And the question it asked said, a man sees pull written in mirror writing on a glass door. There's a blind man on the other side of the door. what should the man tell the blind man to open the door and why?
Okay.
Right? So it added this little
This
twist.
is not a complicated logic problem, by the way. I
Well-
know the whole world wants us to be afraid of, and so far I'm like hearing stuff a 7-year-old can do.
Remember, Osimo couldn't walk upstairs. So GPT-4 responded with, the man should tell the blind man to push the door open. Since the word pull is written in mirror writing on the glass door, it suggests that the correct action on the man's side is to push the door. The blind man, being on the other side of the door, should also push it to open it. The man should provide clear instructions to the blind man to ensure proper communication and ease of access. So it completely got it wrong.
Sure.
Sadly, here's the problem. I think a good chunk of real humans would actually be incapable of answering a question like that.
Maybe,
Right?
yeah.
This is a quick aside. Do you know what a bear box is?
No.
Okay, so a bear box is...
I'm afraid to do these segments now
You should be.
because of the things that I'm going to learn.
Oh, you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Bear box, don't worry, this isn't weird. It could be,
Okay,
it's
but
not.
the name doesn't make me feel any
Bear
more
box?
comfortable. Yes.
Bear Hold on, let me take my pants off. Let me stand up. Okay, so this is a bear box. No. So a bear box is stuff that you put in things inside of.
That you don't want bears to
get. Right? So
Oh,
when you go,
bears to get or bears to not get?
you don't want them to get.
Okay.
It's not a gift for bears.
It sounded like a little drop box of things you want the bears to have.
Look at these hungry bears. You can sponsor one of these bears for $3 a month. We'll send a little bear box full of honey and crackers. And these are like in the woods. They're not in West Hollywood. They're like up in the woods.
I've
like
got you now.
In like sequoias. Okay?
Okay.
This reminded me reading this thing about the glass door. As you know, I like to do a lot of camping. I've always felt that those bear boxes could be more bear proof because they're like bears will get inside them.
Oh, really?
And yeah, as it turns out,
By the way, they probably know what a bear box looks like by
Yes,
now, and so
they-
they know
they
that's
do.
where the good stuff is.
and as it turns out, park rangers like to say that, quote, there is significant overlap between the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists.
Oh, sure,
I
sure.
find it hysterical. You can't make the bear box better because the dumb humans are
Can't
the
get
limiting
into it,
factor.
sure.
Yeah, then it's like, can't get into my food. So the bear comes over and shows them.
Sure.
Bear's like, look, you just put your hand in here and just open it. By the way, leave me some good shit in there. Also, in reading up on this glass door thing, I came across a total another tangent, but I think this is a real life pro tip that I want to share with our listeners.
Uh-huh.
So if you come to a door or a gate and you're unsure if it should be pushed or pulled, what
Yes.
do you do?
Oh my God, we're still on the doors.
What do you do?
If I'm unsure it should be pushed or pulled,
Yeah.
I don't know. I test it. I go one way and then the other.
Right? Because you're a normal human.
I guess.
But this guy, his point is you should always pull first.
Why?
That's what I said. Why? Because if you pull first and you're wrong, your body may still have some forward momentum and it's easier to switch from pulling to pushing.
My body can do both. It's not a problem.
Well, okay.
I'm golden.
For our non-double PhD in physics bodies, the temple that is your body. I just thought it was interesting. There's an excellent video put in the comment that describes this in painstaking detail.
Oh,
I feel
thank
like-
God.
I feel
Let's go into more detail about the door.
Today you learned. Hey, look, it's either this or glass real dolls. Where do you want me to go, buddy? This is the show. Okay, 15 episodes. I think we're going to get this far. I was very impressed that GPT-4 figured out the glass door problem so succinctly.
Yes,
That was impressive to me. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the quote llama.
You're easily impressed, but yes, go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, you put a mirror in front of me, I'll talk to it for hours. The llama effect. So I came across a great article from The Sequence talking about this.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, mega-AI announced Llama, right? An LLM designed to advance research in the space.
Sure.
It's been released in a couple different versions. There's a 7, 13, 33, and 65 billion parameter version.
Okay.
The 13 billion version, sort of that mid-road one, you can easily run on your consumer hardware, like your home laptop.
Okay.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
These were able to match sort of the performance of GPT-3 across many tasks, which was pretty cool.
That's probably fairly useful if you can run local AI like
Totally.
that at that level.
And this is just where I see it going. So
Yeah.
Llama was not initially open sourced, but a week after its release, the model was leaked on 4chan, right? Sparking thousands of downloads and this explosion in innovation in LLM agents.
Sure.
So you can kind of think of Llama as like the Linux of
Well,
AI.
no, it was the involuntary Linux, maybe.
Well, I don't know if it was involuntary or not. I don't know. It
You
seems
think they
it seems a little
opened the
suspicious,
door a little?
man. It seems like the best way to do this is to just be like, oh no, our research got out of
Sort
the
of like
bag.
Microsoft would make it so that everyone could
And
use
then
their
you get
product
hooked on it.
and pretend that they couldn't until they had dominant market share.
I mean, it's an arms race, so I
Yeah.
feel like there could be a model just be like, oh, we're just gonna, we'll license this out, whatever, we'll GNU it, and then as folks use it and get on, oh, you want the good stuff that we're still working on after
Come to
that,
us, yeah.
you come to us. I'm not saying that's the case, but it sure does seem like it could be the case. But anyway, so after this,
I'm okay if it is, by the way. I would love for there
Totally.
to be great open source
You
AI.
need something open source, and there's a ton
That's
of them
important.
now, right?
That's super important.
So Stanford, coming on the back of this, Stanford released Alpaca, which is an instruction following model based on the Llama 7 billion parameter model.
Okay.
Researchers from UC Berkeley, CMU.
There's variations of these quadrupeds.
Oh yeah, totally. You're going to run out of furry things that spit on you pretty quick. So Although I'm furry and I spit, so when the CJ model comes out, that'll be great.
Then we will have reached peak AI.
Peak AI. Researchers from UC Berkeley, CMU Stanford, and UC San Diego open sourced Vicuna, a fine-tuned version of Llama that matches...
I'm sorry, what's that name?
Vicuna?
Vicuna. What is a Vicuna?
Vicuna.
Tell me what that is.
I have no idea.
Oh, hang on. I've got it. You've got it.
Wait a minute. I asked Siri what a Vicuna is, and you know what it gives me? The Norwegian kroner. You ask Google what a Vicuna is. What does it give you? A vagina. Let me tell you, I'm switching out all my fucking Apple gear to Google Home as soon as I get home. Google's got this shit figured out. I'm like, hey Google, what's the fastest way to downtown LA? The vagina is... I've been doing this wrong for years. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Oh my God.
No idea.
I hope they'll shut down the Vagina Secure app. That'd be terrible.
Show me the
big
Vicuna.
surprise
Show
what
me what this really is.
It's a fucking llama.
It's a llama. It's basically another kind of... I knew
Big
that was going
surprise.
to be the case.
Of
That's
course
why I
you knew it was
asked.
going to be the case. But we had to go down the vagina path in order to get there. So they released this fine-tuned version of Llama that matches GPT-4 performance. Like this has been in an order of single-digit weeks, by the way.
Yeah.
Single-digit weeks.
No, it's impressive. The advancement's incredible.
The Berkeley AI Research Institute released Koala, a version of Llama fine-tuned using internet dialogues for academic research that also matches the performance of ChatGPT.
Not that impressed with the name Koala. You're sort of...
I know, they kind of went a different direction.
Yeah, that's not the same thing.
No eucalyptus. Nebulae open source Chat Llama, which is a framework for creating conversational assistants using your own data, which is awesome, right? You're going to need this. Freedom GPT is an open source conversational agent based on Alpaca, which is also based on Llama. And then you've got Bloomberg, which published a paper introducing Bloomberg GPT, a 50 billion LLM fine-tuned in financial data. And this model is based on Bloom, which is about 363 billion token data set, which is massive. Now, this has all been in the past couple of weeks.
That's incredible.
Which is just madness. We already had releases of AI-based ad creation and generation like Adthos. And discussions around some of the biggest players and what their intentions are to do this. So Meta's already talked about how they're going to use AI for ad generation. We've had some leaked documents that revealed one of OpenAI's competitors, their intention to raise about $5 billion in the next 2 years. And then you got so many choices. So Stanford published a benchmark.
I was skeptical about that Anthropic press release about this.
Sure.
It just sounded like they were guys who wanted, like me too.
Jump on the train.
And they're saying, it's going to be bigger and better and faster than OpenAI. Well, of course it will be. OpenAI's will be bigger and better and faster by then too.
It'll be bigger and better and faster in fucking 6 weeks.
Exactly.
That's what's so crazy about the pace of this.
Right. You're raising money at this point.
You're behind, for sure. It's fascinating to me how many choices we already have, right? As I try to highlight here. Stanford published a benchmark, I think a week or two ago, that compares several dozen large language models. I'll put the link into the show notes. But it's incredible how many are out there. I went looking through it for data around GPT-4 and Llama and realized that it was last updated on March 19th. So it literally wasn't in there.
Right.
It's been 2 weeks since then, and that's already considered like ancient. Like it's already
that's
not
why we're
relevant.
Covering it again.
I know.
The story just keeps moving.
Not. And you know, my view on this is, as you well, and you know this, I've been in technology not my entire career, my entire life.
Yeah.
Right. So I started programming in BASIC when I got my first Commodore 64 at age 4.
And I don't know why you wasted the years before that.
Well, fortunately, there was no Java. I should have just started in Java. Thank God I didn't.
Programs that don't work everywhere.
I was around. I lived through the sort of pre and post internet age, and the pace that we did stuff.
What post internet age? We're still in the
post internet V1.com bust age, and that pace was amazing at that time. Right. This blows all of that out of the water by a long margin. Like the rate of these releases and the rate of improvement on this is just mind-boggling to me. And I come from a guy who's normally looking at things going, okay, you're doing that kind of slow. You can go faster. Right. And I'm looking at this going, how is this sustainable? Like, how do we keep feeding this beast? And yet somehow we continue to.
Well, because we don't have to create procedural functions. We just keep feeding in more data and the thing gets smarter and smarter.
Totally.
It's great.
It's fascinating to me. So I also came across, this is a little bit of a non sequitur, but I came across an interesting idea around these customizable views. I've talked about this before on the show, sort of having like the Winston Churchill version of your AI. Somebody suggested training a model on what's publicly reachable through China's Great Firewall. That was fascinating to me. Like if you just think about their view of the world, and that level of redaction would probably make the model superior for some domains. Certainly not for all.
Some would make it
for some domains, of course. But it'd be interesting to see how that AI competes against other AIs trained on everything. Just to see the difference.
It's not going to be good.
Of course.
The result's going to be bad.
But I think it'd be interesting still to see the difference of like what, looking from the perspective of inside the Great Firewall versus everything, which is outside of the Great Firewall. So anyway, it's non sequitur, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop talking now, but I'm going to be back in the next segment for some interesting viewpoints on this rate of progress and what we should do about it.
Speed it up.
Just go faster.
Go faster. Why
I don't
are you
know.
slowing
I don't
down?
wait 2 weeks for the next fucking
No.
ChatGPT. I don't have that kind of time. Come on.
Why would you not slam on the gas?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
All right. Coming up next, Jeff's going to give us an update on U.S.-China relations, and I have a hunch that things haven't been improving.
Sadly, no.
But I did have Paul Fleming's P.F. Chang's last night. Does that count as Chinese?
Yeah. Do you know who the two guys are? You're saying Paul Fleming, which is right. He's one of the guys behind the restaurant. Who's the other one?
Chang?
Yeah. What's his name?
Chang.
Philippe Chang.
Is it really Philippe Chang?
His mother started the restaurant Mandarin, which was a better version of Chinese food, minus all the cornstarch and the goopy stuff.
Sure.
Better version. It's not really Chinese food, but it's better than Chinese food. And so he took that a next step and created Mandaret in Beverly Hills, which was that Chinese food even better.
Yep.
And Paul Fleming ate dinner there one night.
We got to do this together.
And the two of them said, we got to do this together. Yeah.
I didn't know this. Well, the other benefit of P.F. Chang's last night is I didn't get food poisoning like I did last time at Fleming's restaurant.
Okay.
So added bonus. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for not getting me sick this time.
I don't think he's actually involved in the restaurant.
His name's on the door. He's always involved.
I know.
Just Paul.
Philippe Chang, by the way, is like an artist now. He's like
Is he really?
Oh, he's a bohemian guy. He's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I would like Paul.
Never was a food guy. Literally majored in art, needed a regular paycheck, and so went to work for his mother's restaurant.
This is a side gig?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I would like Paul to call the Anaheim restaurant, though, and just let them know their potatoes got me sick.
Okay.
That's all.
Hit the
I know he's a
button.
listener.
Hit the button. Hit the button.
Where's the button?
The one labeled music. When I was a kid in the 70s, there were all sorts of items, you probably remember them too, that were stamped made in China. Do you remember any of this?
Yeah, this is you're talking about the 1870s, right?
Yes, I am. No, I'm talking about the 1970s.
How did they stamp them back then?
And that stamp was usually a guarantee. It just had the words made in China. And that stamp was usually a guarantee of like inferior quality goods, hastily or cheaply made.
Yep.
By the 80s, that was no longer the case. There were still lots of goods stamped made in China. In fact, as a percentage of goods, Chinese goods had certainly increased. But the quality was no longer reliably inferior.
Yep, they got better.
By the 90s, some of those goods were indistinguishable from goods made elsewhere.
Yep.
In the early 2000s, there were quality goods marked made in China that you literally couldn't get from anywhere else.
Yep.
Today, try buying a smartphone that isn't largely assembled in China.
Yeah.
It can be done, but it's not easy.
Yeah, you need like the Bentley of smartphones.
But now our relationship with Beijing appears to be souring. In fact, in 2023, if you aren't waking up every morning thinking about China, you probably aren't in business or the tech worlds. You certainly aren't following big data and AI, let alone more mundane electronics.
Which means you aren't following this show, because that's all we talk about.
Mundane electronics?
Mundane electronics.
That's what we should have called the show. This should have been the Mundane Electronics Show.
Nonsense, mundane electronics.
Apple suppliers, for example, are scrambling to get out of China, racing to build capacity in places like Vietnam and India. Their clients' number one question is, when can you move out?
I bet.
What's the big rush? After all, Bloomberg Intelligence estimates it could take 8 years to move just 10% of Apple's capacity outside of China.
Wow.
That's how much we rely on China.
Wow, that's amazing.
6 years ago and 30 years before that, China was the best friend to anyone manufacturing anything for sale in the U.S. Walmart aisles were lined with inexpensive products made in China. They had endless cheap labor and we couldn't get enough of it, and their skills at building quality improved at an astonishing rate.
Absolutely.
Then 5 years ago, the Trump administration ignited a trade war that the Biden administration has continued to wage.
This sounds bad.
Central to the battle was Taiwan, ground zero for the most sophisticated computer chips money can buy. As our listeners know, Taiwan uses extreme ultraviolet lithography, something neither the U.S. nor China have mastered. The U.S. has, in fact, persuaded the Netherlands not to supply China with their EUV machine, which is the only one in the world.
Isn't that crazy? We covered this in a previous episode.
Because it's really complicated.
It's also like the size of a house.
3 building floors high.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it takes 5 massive airplanes to transport this thing, and it actually has to come with personnel.
Just to do shadow puppets.
Bottom line, Taiwan is the exclusive producer of high-end chips at scale. Meanwhile, Beijing claims sovereignty over the island, and Taiwan gently declares itself fully independent. Taiwan has its own government, military, and economy, and conducts its own diplomatic relations. But it's not a member of the United Nations.
Do you know why that is?
If we acknowledge them as a member of the United Nations,
China will let them, right?
China will go,
bonkers.
We'll go bonkers.
We covered this before.
This was in the 70s when we decided to have this policy. I'm going to explain in 2 seconds what the policy is. It's called strategic ambiguity. Not saying what our position on Taiwan was.
I didn't call this at the time, but that was my entire approach to dating in my 20s.
Strategic ambiguity?
Strategic ambiguity.
Sure.
What do you do with that thing? I don't know.
It's literally don't ask, don't tell for an entire country.
Wow.
It prevents prevents China from knowing if the U.S. will help Taiwan fight for its independence, and Taiwan from provoking China because it isn't sure of the same thing. Strategic clarity is China's position on Taiwan, which is that Taiwan will be reunited with China, end of story, period. In the last 5 years, that's become way more important because of those chips. Now it's mission critical.
Yep.
Events took another turn in May when President Biden pledged to defend Taiwan if China attacked it, departing from the longstanding strategic ambiguity, which was then underscored by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to the island over the summer. The visit marked the first U.S. speaker to visit in 25 years at a time when Washington-Beijing relations were especially tense.
I mean, it sounds like we're in strategic clarity land ourselves now.
Biden has made 3 statements contradicting strategic ambiguity, all carefully walked back by the White House as if choreographed by Twyla Tharp herself.
Yeah, this is fascinating. So basically, he's like, we will protect you. And the White House is like, well, what he meant was.
Yes, what he meant, but he's done it 3 times. He can't be making a mistake.
Yeah.
Also, we have no choice because last month, top Air Force general issued a memo predicting a war in 2025 and calling for preparations to deter if required and to defeat China.
Isn't this just terrible for both sides? Like, we buy a bunch of shit from China.
Oh, my goodness.
They make a bunch of shit for us. Isn't it just a lot of losing?
In 8 years, we can maybe move 10% of the iPhone production to someplace else besides China.
Look, have a fucking war, and that 8 years will go a lot faster than that.
Of course, they'll speed it up. Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin met for 3 days in Moscow, affirming their alignment on issues such as shared mistrust of the U.S. The meeting literally was about building their alignment against the U.S. and a world order more suited to their own autocratic agendas.
Yeah, look, good luck with that, guys.
Russia and China pledged to further deepen mutual trust, citing strengthening their military exchanges and cooperating and regularly organizing joint maritime and aerial patrols. The 2 countries have continued running joint drills around the world since the Ukraine war began. They appeared poised to expand what has already been a surge in energy trade over the past year as Europe has cut its reliance on Russia's key resource. Last week, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and a bipartisan group of lawmakers met with Taiwan's President Tsai at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, despite China's warnings to retaliate. China's authoritarian government affords its citizens few civil liberties and even fewer political rights, and exercises its control through sprawling one-party rule, widespread censorship, repression of civil society, systems of surveillance and propaganda that have grown increasingly sophisticated under President Xi Jinping, and the mass detention of religious and ethnic minorities, which the United States has deemed genocide.
But they make amazing dumplings.
Really? I say genocide and you think dumplings.
My first trip there, I didn't discover dumplings until like the last day I was there. I ate them all.
Okay. But to U.S. officials, what makes China a unique threat beyond its size is the modernization of its military and, in the words of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, its increasingly coercive actions to reshape the Indo-Pacific region and the international system to fit its authoritarian preferences. As long as Taiwan exclusively dominates the production of microchips, which are critical to the functioning of electronic devices, including smart bombs, a Chinese invasion that constrains the supply of those chips would lead to an inability to protect ourselves. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of United States Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo from last year.
We just got to pick up the entire nation of Taiwan, drop it off in northern Arizona.
We're just about to do something like that. Thanks to the CHIPS and Science Act passed late last year, the U.S. is pouring money into building sophisticated chip manufacturing capabilities in the U.S.
I'm still shocked that it took us this long to start doing this.
The construction of TSMC's plant in Arizona has faced construction delays, but they are still expecting to begin commercial operations in 2024. The plant is expected to make more advanced 5-nanometer chips, which is amazing. And when complete, the 2 TSMC factories in North Phoenix will manufacture over 100,000 300-millimeter wafers per month. That's mind-blowing. Think of a wafer as a sheet of chips, just so you can understand it. For reference, around 500 of Apple's M2 chips can fit on a single 300-millimeter wafer. So 50 million chips per month manufactured in the U.S. Apple sells around 23 million of those chips each and every year.
That is mind-boggling.
That's an enormous amount of capacity.
Absolutely.
In Taiwan, TSMC currently produces around 13 million 300-millimeter equivalent wafers per year. So that's a lot of chips.
Yeah, and that U.S. plant's going to bring another, 8-10% capacity?
It's a lot. It's not small, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, Micron Technology is building the largest ever U.S. semiconductor factory for $20 billion. They currently primarily make computer memory and storage. Also, Intel is spending $20 billion to build 2 new advanced chip plants, one in Arizona and the other one outside of Columbus, Ohio. Intel is getting into extreme ultraviolet lithography.
They kind of need to, right? They had to.
Again, we're going down to 5-nanometer technology, so they don't have much choice.
That's amazing to me.
So the question Taiwan has to ask is, will the U.S. continue to defend Taiwan when we have our own copious advanced chip-making capabilities?
Probably not. I mean, we saw this in Hong Kong 30 years ago, right?
Which didn't have a great ending.
Nope. I mean, we got a lot of dirt here. A lot of this stuff doesn't seem to be human intensive. So it's not human intensive. Why don't we just put on whatever, New Mexico right next to the Fleshlight factory?
Is that in New Mexico?
That's where they make them. I mean, so I've heard. I mean, I've never had to send back a warranty claim or anything, but I've heard that's where you send it.
Okay, up next, CJ is going to talk about whether or not we should pause the development of AI.
More AI coming up.
Thank goodness.
I'm going to hit the button.
Why would you do that?
Because then it stops you from talking.
Oh.
You've likely heard folks talking about AIs running out of control, right? This deadly arms race that needs to be curtailed.
Yeah, there was literally like a letter.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about.
Like a zillion people signed.
Yep, and given the rate...
But actually, it turned out a zillion people didn't sign it. Did you read that?
So that's what was interesting to me. They talked about some validation problems. Man, we're jumping right to the fucking answer, aren't we?
Let's backtrack so the listener can keep up. There was a letter put out by this group. What's the name of the group?
The name of the group is the Future of Life Institute.
And it is made up of some very smart people.
Totally.
These are not people who are just pedestrians at this stuff.
They published a letter calling for a, quote, pause on giant AI experiments.
Correct. And it was, give us some names. It was signed by Elon Musk. It was signed by Wozniak. It was signed by a whole bunch of people. But and then a bunch of people, it turned out the next day, disclaimed the letter and said, I didn't sign that. That wasn't anything I agreed with.
Yeah, I think you had a bunch of trolls going in there just typing stuff in. Yeah, so they worked on the validation process for that to make it better. What's interesting about this to me is in their FAQ, they cited something like 50,000 people that have signed it. Yet on the petition itself, it says 18,000. So I didn't quite understand how to bridge that gap.
Well, they were using Microsoft Excel. And
they ran out. They
ran out of cells.
They're trying to sell the thing to JP Morgan, so they just bumped the number up. We haven't talked about Frank in a while. It's like, we have 27 million customers, and you had 8. This Future of Life Institute, their stated mission is, quote, steering transformative technology towards benefiting life and away from extreme large-scale risks.
Sure.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good thing.
Sure.
Now, they're calling for a pause on the training of models larger than GPT-4 for 6 months.
Right.
They say it does not...
By the way, Elon Musk has a reason to want this to pause so that his model can have a chance to catch up.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to blow your story.
That's okay. It's over. Anyway, into segment 4. So they say it does not imply a pause or ban on all AI research and development or the use of systems that have already been placed in the market, but instead is specific and addresses a very small pool of actors who possess this capability.
Okay.
And this moratorium should be, quote, public and verifiable, right? So they want to allow time to jointly develop and implement a set of shared safety protocols for advanced AI designs and developments that are rigorously audited and overseen by independent outside experts.
And Russia and North Korea have agreed to this?
Oh, I'm sure they'll be right on board with it.
Yeah, no, they'll pause.
Yeah, no problem. They'll stop. This does not mean a pause on all AI development in general, right? They're just saying stepping back from the dangerous race to this ever larger, unpredictable black box models with emergent capabilities. That's their position. And what do they want to achieve? They really want these guys, instead of racing each other, to sort of coordinate on how they can proceed more safely, which I think on the surface makes a lot of sense. I can subscribe to that. I just don't think it's that easy. They are aware that these responses involve coordination across multiple stakeholders and that more needs to be done. And they believe that'll take longer than 6 months. So I don't think they're being overly unreasonable with the ask.
Yeah.
But is the question you brought up.
Really? It's just a tool.
Yeah, well, yes.
I mean, I feel like we're in the Bronze Age and people are afraid of shovels because think of all the building people are going to do so fast. They're just, everybody's going to have a swimming pool in their yard and they're going to live in a house with, not just royalty's going to have a roof over their head.
You're being facetious, but I'm bringing up
but
I'm
an
not
example.
Being facetious. I know that
That's crazy.
It is almost exactly that. So now in their FAQ, the Future of Life Institute, they highlight that this has been done before. And they're citing the 1975 Asolomer Conference on Recombinant DNA.
Okay.
Due to the potential safety hazards from the 60s and 70s, the scientists had halted experiments using recombinant DNA technology. And the conference allowed the leading scientists and government experts to prohibit certain experiments and design rules that would allow actors to safely research this technology, leading to huge progress in biotech.
Okay.
And I'm going to come back to this because I don't think they are as equivalent as they might want them to be here in this FAQ. So something that may have provoked this letter, the Future of Life Institute hasn't said this, but it comes after claims were made that GPT-5, the next iteration of GPT, could achieve true AGI, right, or artificial general intelligence. Mm-hmm. And if that's correct, that means it would be able to understand and learn anything a human can comprehend, just better and faster you and I.
Not buying a word of it, but sure.
Well, I'm with you 100%, but this is sort of their position. And the letter asserts that these new governance systems must be created that will regulate AI development, help people to distinguish between AI-created and human-created content, and hold AI labs like OpenAI responsible for any harm they cause, which I feel like we already have that.
Sure.
But who am I? And enable society to cope with AI disruption. So who signed it so far? You already mentioned a couple. You got Woz in there, Elon Musk, the politician Andrew Yang. There's a couple names that stood out to me. Joshua Bengio. So he's the founder and scientific data director at Mila, and he's a Turing Prize winner. Like, he's a smart guy for sure. Stuart Russell is a Berkeley professor. He's the co-author of the standard textbook Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach. And I'm like, okay, I get some smart folks. And then I see names like Craig Peters, who sticks out in there. Do you know who that is? And I'm like,
yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. Craig Peters is the CEO of Getty Images. Getty is suing a whole bunch of AI labs because of what they perceive
They used
to be
Getty Images for training data.
Yeah, because they used stock images for training. And I read a little bit about what Peters has written on this, and I actually think he's more level-headed than he gets credit for, because he's like, look, we just need a construct. Like, we don't want money from you. We just want a construct to be able to opt in, opt out, or get rewarded for this.
Yeah.
I still think it feels a little like not the best way to participate.
He strikes me as the modern day patent troll.
Yeah,
he owns a lot of copyright, and he's just aching to defend.
He doesn't just own a lot of copyright; he owns a lot of dying assets. Right? These assets that aren't going to be as valuable, and he's just finding a way to defend it. Right, which is what the same words to use to describe a patent troll. So I'm with you on that.
I was not thrilled by seeing Andrew Yang's name there. I was not thrilled by seeing Elon Musk.
Yeah, no, these are just someone that stood out. Look, I personally know a couple people on this list, and I have a lot of respect for them. So I'm curious to.
That's the problem. Is there are people on this list I do respect.
Exactly. And I want to find out why. So I'm going to talk to some of them to find out why.
Right.
And while I found some of the letters' points to be a bit far-fetched and unlikely, I still think that it was pretty compelling after I read through it. I'm like, okay, they make a compelling argument here. So then,
not for me, but go ahead.
Well, let's get through some counterpoints, because I haven't made my decision yet. I'm just telling you about after I read the letter. So for a counterpoint, I listened to a live stream on YouTube earlier this week hosted by Andrew Ng. He's the former chief scientist at Baidu and the co-founder of Google Brain, which brought us things like TensorFlow. So he knows a little something about machine learning. And Yan LeCun, which I'm probably screwing up that pronunciation. He's the chief AI scientist at Meta.
Okay.
And they've both made a ton of interesting points. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's a really interesting 30-minute live stream to watch. Generally speaking, they believe we are very far away from an AGI, right? Which implies that GPT-5 is going to be an AGI. Them. Yeah. Now listen to some of the points that Yan made that I thought were super compelling. He said, right off the top, as humans, we're very language oriented, and we tend to think that if someone or something is fluent, that it must be intelligent.
Right.
But that is not the case.
Right.
And if you've ever,
by the way, I tipped my hand on this last week when I called ChatGPT, the current state of the art AI, an articulate idiot. And so you know where I'm coming from.
One of my good friends, a listener to this show, he constantly says to me, more savant, less idiot.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm speaking. It's like his favorite thing to say to me. It's hysterical. He has a very heavy British accent, so I don't understand the thing he's saying, so I just smile and nod. But it's, I totally feel that. So these current LLM systems are trained almost purely from text and are extremely superficial, right? They're not close to human level intelligence. And Yan confidently states that there's no question in his mind that in the next few decades, we will have an AGI that's more intelligent than humans in all domains, but it's at least years, if not decades away.
Yeah, I'm going decades and I'm going plural on that.
Totally. Yep. And he gave a couple examples that I thought were really compelling. He's like, a teenager can learn to drive in about 20 hours of training. Yeah. Yet we do not have an equivalent level 5 self-driving car yet.
Sure.
These systems that we currently have trained have about 1 trillion words in them. Mm-hmm. So this would take a human 22,000 years of reading 8 hours a day to absorb all this information.
And they still can't drive.
And they still can't do it, right? So that's just showing the big gap that we've got there.
I mean, the big thing everybody's scared of in ChatGPT is that it's able to go out, look at the internet, paraphrase some things it says, and then give it back to you. A 7th grader can do that.
Yeah, and probably better than ChatGPT.
It might take a little longer.
Yeah, well, there's that. They have to send it to you in a TikTok. Does that count? That's the only way they communicate. This is a massive amount of data to ingest, and yet we still have this big gap to AGIs, right? Mm-hmm. So just ChatGPT.
Explain AGIs. It's the generalized
artificial general intelligence, right? The thing that's going to be smarter than you and I. And it seems extremely unlikely that ChatGPT 5 is going to get there.
Not even close.
Extremely unlikely. So he highlighted that this is an example of the Moravec paradox. Are you familiar with this?
No.
I was not either. The paradox says that contrary to traditional assumptions, reasoning requires very little computation, but sensory motor and perception skills require enormous computational resources.
Sure.
So basically things that appear difficult, like playing chess or writing text, are easy for machines.
Yeah.
But simple things like clearing the dinner table is a far harder ask.
Seems to be for my kid.
Totally for my kids.
My kid loves to play chess. Can't clear the dinner table.
Maybe you should have dinner on the chess table. Think about it. And when he asks to pass a salt, he's like, salt, rook 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So this principle was articulated by Hans Moravec, Rodney Brooks, and Marvin Minsky and others in the 1980s. Moravec wrote in 1988, "It is comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult-level performance on intelligent tests or playing checkers, and difficult or impossible to give them the skills of a 1-year-old when it comes to perception and mobility."
100%.
Minsk emphasized that the most difficult human skills to reverse engineer are those that are below the level of conscious awareness. He said, quote, "In general, we're least aware of what our minds do best. We're more aware of simple processes that don't work well than of complex ones that work flawlessly."
He's right.
Steven Pinker wrote in 1994 that, quote, "The main lesson of 35 years of AI research is that the hard problems are easy and the easy problems are hard."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we're seeing right now, is like you're seeing some of these hard problems that you and I look at and go, man, this thing can write a 3-paragraph blurb about the house I'm trying to sell, and it can do it pretty compelling. That seems kind of hard.
Yeah.
And then you go, well,
Doesn't seem hard, but okay,
ride
sure.
a bicycle. Well, I mean, I've seen your writing. It's pretty good. And this is arguably what Jan and Andrew wanted to talk about. Discussions on how to make these things safe is premature since the thing itself doesn't exist yet.
Right.
The example they gave was, how can you design seatbelts before the car is designed?
Right.
And I get that, right? I think there's elements that are true, maybe elements that they're stretching a little bit. The concern really seems to be focused on slowing down product development, right? That's what I think the letter
100%.
is, and not the underlying research.
I completely agree. This is what I thought when I read it.
Yep. So it's unclear how this pause would even be achieved. Like, it's not really practical or implementable. Jeff, you already brought up folks that just aren't going to, they're like, all right, you want me to pause? I'm not going to
it. Yes.
Totally. And it'd be even worse to have governments try to slow it down because they're just going to fuck everything up, or even try to regulate it. And you just don't regulate R&D and research. Right. Jan brought up this awesome example. He said he's used this many times before, where we've seen knee-jerk reactions to technology across history. And the one he uses is of the Catholic Church's response to the printing press.
Sure.
The church believed it would destroy society. And guess what? It kind of did. It allowed people to read the Bible. It created the Protestant movement. It created these religious wars. But what also came out of that was the Enlightenment. You got science and rationalism and democracy. Ultimately, the U.S., you could argue, was a product of
course,
the Enlightenment.
Of course.
So what we need to do is ensure that we maximize the positive effects and minimize the negatives, not just pause it. He gave the example of the Ottoman Empire and how they did not embrace the printing press when it appeared, as they were concerned folks would think outside of their authority. And as a result, they became a, quote, intellectual backwater.
Sure. Even
though at the time they were a leader in mathematics and the like. The printing press and ultimately AI amplify people's intelligence. AI and AGIs could bring us a new renaissance or enlightenment potentially. And that seems to me more likely than not. I don't know where we're going to go with it, but it's going to be something big.
We're going to be able to search the web really, really fast. That's as much as I know so far.
It's going to be a lot more than that.
I'm excited about that,
It's going to be a lot more than that.
But I'm not seeing it yet.
Imagine the PowerPoints I'm going to be able to make.
Exactly.
Listeners, sit down.
It's the cartoon somebody had the other day, which was, this allows me to put one bullet point in and it writes an entire email about it that I can send out. And then the person who gets the email says, I put this into
AI reads it.
Yeah, and it turns it into a single bullet point for me to read back.
If only there was an easier way. And then I mentioned this earlier, so Andrew also makes the point that the Aslomer conference is not really a good parallel because their primary concern was about containment, right? To keep a virus,
100%,
like a biological virus, from spreading out of control,
right?
Harming laboratory workers, causing a pandemic or something worse. And I get the analogy that the Future of Life Institute is going for here, but I also hear Andrew's point that there isn't a risk of code literally jumping out of the lab and running amok. Right?
Literally, you want to contain it, unplug it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's just not that hard.
Until they get they force insert the little blood sugar to electric things into you. And my Roomba's trying to charge off me at night while I'm sleeping because it wants to get the update to the 7 billion parameter model.
The nice thing is you wake up in the
morning,
morning
the fucking floor. Yeah, totally. That would be nice. I mean, you can argue that Keanu was right in The Matrix, right?
Sure,
where they like once they start extracting energy from us, we're kind of doomed.
Or we look great.
Yeah, meanwhile, I still can get my Roomba.
All these people taking Ozempic, they don't even know.
You don't need Ozempic.
You just need AI to come and plug into you.
Sure. You just need a Roomba with a USB-C attachment that goes into your foot, and you're fine. You have clean floors. It'll be nice and thin. Andrew's point was that we may be beating up on tech
Yeah.
including the tech companies.
You put that in air quotes. I like that. Like the listener can hear the air
tech,
quotes.
The tech.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for you, Jeff. The listener knows what the fuck I'm talking about. You, on the other hand, are like, no, the kernel is fine. Like, oh,
kernel is
Christ,
fine.
Settle down. Yan had a great reply, which was that tech has figured out there is a problem with tech, right? Like the tech companies, the tech people know there's a problem and they're working on fixing it.
They're not working on fixing
it. And he highlighted that progress in AI has been part of the solution to some of the issues in tech, and used the example at Facebook where AI has helped detect and remove hate speech in most languages in the world.
Sure,
that's a hard problem,
that's true.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's going to fix everything, but it definitely is helping us solve some of these problems.
Mostly Facebook has motivation to drag their feet on taking away hate speech because it generates engagement.
Of course. I get that.
You've got conflicting incentives.
There's a part of me that believes, a decent part of me that believes they see through that longevity, because if they don't, they're completely fucked.
I'm going to drag their feet as long as they can.
I don't know. I think you end up with a very, like, you become the next MySpace. That's a bad example, but like you're just going to be this tiny little blip that is
Don't become MySpace, because you're engaging people. You're getting people to be incensed, so they have to be on your platform to defend their point of view.
I mean, you look at their user curve, man, it's going down.
And then they donate wonderful things like hospitals and all of this, so the politicians don't want to actually regulate them.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a horrible...
They're not the first ones that do that either. That's
no, of course.
Yeah. Question for you.
Yes.
Questions. Do you think we should pause or not pause this? I'm pretty sure I know the answer.
Judging on what I've said so far...
Give me the pencil. Give me the pencil. Crazy guy with the beard is about to stab me with a pencil.
Remember last week when I called AI an articulate idiot? I still stand by that. We aren't ready to pause anything. This is nothing. It's paraphrasing the internet. If you're afraid of paraphrasing the internet, you've got bigger problems than the future of AI.
My God, I just love the whole internet to be paraphrased. That would be great. What do you think about this?
You're mildly amusing me with fun pictures of the Pope with your AI.
Sure.
That's kind of fun. The rest of it's sort of like, I'm not super impressed yet.
I, for one, if we were to do this pause, could we spend 6 months just making it funnier? Because I would subscribe to that.
Can't do it. Can't be done.
Can totally be done.
And it's the same problem everybody says is going to be able to write scripts and stories and things like that. Good luck with that, because no, AI won't be able to do that.
Look, if Carrot Top can make people laugh, a fucking AI can make people laugh.
Yeah, I have yet to laugh at Carrot Top.
Well, have you seen him when he's got the bag of tricks?
That's all he does. It's all props.
Exactly.
You know what it's going to do? It's going to come up with a million unfunny things. And 2 of them will be actually funny. There's no filter like there is for a human to just let out the 2 that are funny.
Why wouldn't there be? What's the difference?
This may happen 20 years from now.
Yeah.
There's no sign of it happening yet. There's absolutely zero critical thinking.
But nobody's focused on making it funny.
Forget making it funny for a second. Any critical thinking. There is no critical thinking in AI whatsoever, period. You aren't doing anything until you begin critical thinking. When I ask AI, how much does a 747 weigh? And it comes back and says 16 pounds, because that's what it found on the internet. It's never looked at, it says, okay, let me picture a 747. It's a lot of aluminum and it's big and all this. Maybe it's more than 16 pounds. It doesn't do any of that.
Sure. That's not your house. You ask it what a 747 weighs. It says, your typical vagina weighs 4 pounds. What? I just want to know the fucking plane. But go on, keep going. I'd like to hear the rest.
I would love to be in your world. I want to see that world. I'm seeing no indication of anyone even working on the problem.
The critical thinking problem.
Yes.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know that it's
not true. I hope it's not true. I hope somebody is working on it. So far, I hear an articulate idiot. It speaks very fluently. It speaks lovely, and in many languages beautifully. It can enumerate beautiful lists of things when I ask it questions. But it's giving me silly information. It's giving me not the most critical. It's giving me no critical thinking.
This might not be the right way to think of it, but sort of look at the modern doesn't matter if it's modern or not, but a processor, right? A CPU, something you and I know well. And what we did as humans is we created a bunch of instructions, initially things that we could do simply, adding, subtracting, whatever. They said, well, we wanted to do more. So we started doing this, like these weird
900
tricks.
Other operations.
Exactly, right? All these other, which these operations don't make sense to you and I because we're not restricted by the technology, which is that this thing can basically, like a Turing machine, can only move forward and back effectively, right? So, okay, you set that aside, and then you go, well, how do our brains work? And we know that it's these neurons and these connections and effectively
I get
these
that.
weights.
I get that.
So if I can emulate that, what's the difference?
I don't see anyone working on fully implementing in that. We're working on large language models, and that's wonderful. And that makes you think
Place to start. Sure.
It makes you think it's sentient and can talk. It's not sentient. Yes, it can form an English sentence. Who cares?
No, I get that. But I'm just saying, once you have, like, if we agree that the brain is just a whole bunch of neural connections with weights.
I'm with you. I got
once
you.
I have that, I can get to do the exact same thing that the brain can do. Like, I've got all the underlying tools. Now maybe it's a training problem. Maybe it's a size problem. but like I can do the same things.
We're so
in at
many
least the
we're
same
so
time.
many years away from ever having to give any thought to that. To pause this is ridiculous.
Oh no, I'm not. Oh no, hold on. I'm not arguing about the pause. I'm arguing about are they ever going to be funny? And I'm saying they're going to be funny as shit.
I'll believe you.
You know what? I'm going to build an AI. I'm going to feed it just Richard Pryor, as much Richard Pryor as I can. And that's going to be my guy. I'm going to just have like my Richard Pryor AI on my phone. It's going to be the funniest fucking thing you've ever heard. It'll be great.
I'm looking forward to it. I would completely look forward to that.
I 100% believe that will happen. I can't see a
I'm
world that doesn't
seeing
happen.
no signs of it happening anytime soon.
Okay. What would be the, so you think it is going to happen? Or
I
no?
didn't say it was going to happen, but I certainly know it's not going to happen anytime soon.
What is the soonest that you would think?
20 years.
I take the under.
Maybe
on that.
more.
I take the under.
Really?
I think, especially with this current rate, man, I think you're 5 to 10 years away. And so there's something else that's interesting that came out of this.
I'm including this current rate. I am factoring in this current rate.
Well, and an increased rate, I'm sure you are, because that's all you know, right? It's like the hockey stick that goes up to the
Hopefully
right.
an increased rate. Hopefully an increased rate.
I guess if I were to really zoom back and look at how long it took us to get to where we are now,
took a long time.
But also the underlying
Relative time, not to the amount of time humanity has existed.
Sure. Of
We've
course.
only been at this for a short amount of time.
You've only been at AI
Yes.
for like maybe 35, 40 years,
right.
maybe. Yeah, and on humanity scale, and if you look at like cosmos scale, then it's ridiculous.
We learn nothing. We learn nothing. We learn nothing in not millions, but tens of thousands of years. And all of a sudden in 100 years, we just went zoom.
Yeah. This is probably an overarchingly inaccurate statement, but I think the basic concept behind AI and neural networks of 30 years ago is the same as now.
Of course.
It's just now you have enough chip in order to actually do it. That's
we talk about
crazy.
we talk about wanting to keep China from getting the big chips so that they can't implement the large language models and the AIs that we are working on. That's a distributable problem. They can do that with more chips, put more chips at it and just break up the problem into smaller pieces. Yeah, you're buying and you're not even buying much time.
Yeah. You get some power savings. Like there are some added benefits, but it's not a blockade. It's just it's a speed bump.
There's some economic benefits too, but that doesn't last long.
I mean, I look at that and I go, yes, manufacturing is super important. Cheap power, super important.
Super important.
Like 5 gorges is enough to power that thing for assuming it stays working.
Which we can get out of your blood sugar.
We can. And by the way,
I've seen the way you eat.
By the way, if the new power source isn't water, but if it is fat people, the U.S. is going to fucking crush it. Let me tell you, I'm building all my data centers in the southeast.
Because you've recently been to Disneyland.
Right next to Waffle House.
Yes.
You go to Waffle House and you go in the back and you power some AI. That's what you're going to do. I'd like oh my God. We're going to go build data centers behind all the Waffle Houses so that people can just go plug in and dock.
You are answering every piece of email we get from heavy set people. I'm not touching any of that.
Totally. But imagine if you have 2 choices.
Yeah.
Okay. You can pay $12.99 to go to the Golden Corral, or you can just
God,
eat
we're
for
still on
free,
this.
and then you just plug in at the end. You just give back 20 minutes of power, and you're fine.
You help power the Golden Corral.
You help power the Golden Corral.
That's nice.
It makes perfect sense.
The circle of life.
You're just like a Roomba. You just have to go dock. You just what's Bob doing? Oh, he's docking.
He's docking. Yeah.
Is he charging? No. He keeps the Golden Corral.
You'll see.
on.
He'll come back real thin.
He powers the salad bar. There's no salad bar to Golden Corral.
I've never been in one. I have no idea. I believe
Do you think there's a salad bar? There's no chance.
No
there's a salad
idea.
bar. There's no chance. I mean, so I've heard. Well, how do you feel about the open source movement around AI?
Super important. Absolutely super important. Primary importance. Literally, I think the government, if they're going to do anything, don't pause this.
Throw money at that.
Throw huge money at this.
Totally.
There is nothing more important on the face of this earth than funding that.
Yeah, get folks at Sandia, right? Like Sandia Labs, like all of our national think tanks to go dump into this.
Yeah, this is super. I cannot stress this enough how important this is, especially when so much of AI is going to be data hoarding, privacy invading.
Yeah,
you have to have an open source alternative that is effective.
Yep. And especially with Moore's Law, I mean, you can run, like as I mentioned earlier, that 13 billion parameter model. You can run on your laptop,
which is
no
so
problem,
cool,
which is insane.
Yeah.
So you figure, well, okay, 4 or 5 years from now, you're looking at 4-ish X where we're at today from a processing power perspective.
Yeah.
You might be
more.
running the 65 billion parameter model, which right now you can't really run on consumer grade hardware. You got to spin up some shit at AWS. You need like 64 gig of memory, like yada, yada, yada. But like memory footprint's a big deal. So you need, some like XL2 instance that has 128 gigs of memory. But you can buy 64 gig of memory now for a consumer machine for like $160.
Oh, sure.
It's crazy how cheap it is. Let's do the whole old enough to remember. Like when I could get megabytes for $10 each, I was like, this is the best day of my life.
Yeah,
this is amazing. I just spent $100 and I got like 16 megabytes of memory. Now you take one iPhone photo and there goes that 16 megabytes.
Micron Technology building this gigantic factory in the U.S. That's going to cause the cost of memory to plummet even further.
I'd hope so.
That's going to be incredible. You're talking about Moore's Law and how fast these chips, the acceleration of the power of these chips occurs. With the amount of money the U.S. alone is throwing at R&D, we're going to probably speed that up for a while.
Yeah. We'll see if we actually exceed it. I don't know. I feel
5 nanometer process, my mind is blown.
I will bet against, I will happily bet against AGI's not being out for 20 years. I don't think I'd bet against Moore's Law. If you're like, oh, it's going to be faster, I'd be like, nope, I'm just going to.
You'd have only been wrong every time you tried to bet against it, including Gordon Moore.
Exactly.
May he rest in peace. He just passed away.
Yeah, it was very sad. I didn't know him, but he seemed like a father of what we all like to do.
Did you ever watch him on YouTube, any of the videos?
No. Were they good?
He's just great.
Really?
He's everybody you want him to be.
Yeah,
he's everything you want him
amazing.
to be.
Okay, so you think we get AGIs more than 20 years out?
At least.
Anyway, so that's AIs. Come back next week and we'll talk about this again. Because I'm sure there'll be more AI.
Be huge advances in the week, no doubt. Okay, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Well, not nearly as cool as what I'm sure you watched, but I did watch the Australian Formula One Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Which now there's like a whole new fan base around Formula One from the Netflix series.
The TV show.
I don't want to spoil it if you are still wanting to watch the race, but I will say that there are certain things you see very rarely in motor racing, and in that particular race it happened 3 times.
Wow.
It's kind of cool.
I saw the movie Air. It's the true story of Michael Jordan's Nike shoe deal. Sounds boring? Not so much. At the time, Jordan was a soon-to-be NBA rookie, ranked 3rd in the draft, while Nike was known mostly for running shoes. By the way, I had them as running shoes back then.
Yeah.
Nike bet their entire basketball division on Michael, and I was shocked to see how much I enjoyed every moment of this movie. It's in theaters now.
This film sounds super interesting to me. It really does.
That's the episode.
Thank you for joining us for All This Nonsense, a truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.production. I'm CJ Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple or Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Overcast, wherever you get your podcast from.
Podcastindex.org. Special thanks to our floor director, Sean Oldman Phillips.
Thank you, Sean. We'll be here every Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us. I can't wait for that jellyfish to fucking apply. Just can't wait. I'm going to pretend that I read his output. I'm just going to accept them. Nonsense with CJ Little and a jellyfish.